This conference will now be recorded.
లేదు లేదు చాలా
This
focusing on the kind
conference
of
will now be recorded.
support in terms of IT based as well as management aspects as well. So we were doing this extensively for a long time, and nowadays we were coming up with some kind of webinars to be conducted on different topics which are more useful to the people across globe. And coming to my introduction, this is Raj here. I'm a business management graduate by profession, by qualification. In the year of 2000, I've completed my graduation. After that, I was into management and as well as in IT fields for a long time. More than a decade and a half years of experience I have, majorly into business analysis, project management. At the same time, extensively worked on decision making and higher management levels as well, mid-level and higher level management, especially for inception companies I work for. So this is what my introduction is all about. I hope everybody have attended here, right? So can everyone introduce yourself one by one? Mr. Ajit, can you introduce yourself? What exactly you are and all that? What is your professional experience and all? Ajit, are you there? Ajit? Next, Kavya, because whoever I'm seeing here, I'm able to see, I'm asking them one by one. Ajit? Yeah, you can speak here. You can speak here. Rather than texting it, it's better if you can speak here would be more better, so that I'd like to know what exactly your professional experience is all about, followed by your educational qualification and so on. So anyone, please. Ajit, Kavya, Naresh, Rajender, Rami, anyone?
Hello.
Yes. May I know who is this?
Hi Raj, I'm
Kavya.
Kavya.
Kavya,
Yes.
very good. Good morning and good evening as well to you. Please go
Yeah,
ahead.
good evening.
Yeah, please go ahead.
I completed my BTech in 2017.
Mm-hmm.
Hello.
Yeah,
Am I
yeah, go ahead.
audible?
Yeah, I'm listening. I'm listening. You go ahead, please. Yes, it is audible, Kavya. You can go ahead. Please carry on.
Yeah. Yeah, thank you. First of all, I'm Kavya. I completed my BTech in 2017. After that, I worked in Wipro in Google mapping
Okay.
side. Later
Mhm.
on, I went to the course like SAP.
Okay.
Okay. After that, I'm doing my trials in SAP field only. But unfortunately, and my goodness, all I don't know. Uh, I met Vinod bro.
Mhm. Okay, fine.
He explained me about DBA. At present,
Okay.
I'm learning DBA from Ajay and Vinod bro.
Okay, good. Very nice. Very nice meeting you, Kavya. Anyone
Yeah.
apart? Naresh, Rajender, Vinay, Rami, Ajit? Anyone, please? Because the session today is all about conflict management. I hope you people were aware of it, right? The major challenge for conflict management and all everything, the solution, the first one is communication, right? So because communication is important for effectiveness and all that, right? So hope if you can introduce yourself for 2 minutes would be more helpful. Anyone, please, apart from Kavya? Okay, fine. Let me just give you an overview about what am I going to cover in this session of conflict management, because I hope most of the people who are working for different organizations or people who are pursuing their educational career and all that, hope most of the people were aware about what is conflict is all about, right? The basic understanding of conflict, everyone of conflict, what is conflict and all about. But there are some approaches, depends upon the kind of geographical location where we were in, at the same time the kind of company or the kind of environment war are we belongs to, right? It depends upon that the kind of resolution strategies and techniques we need to follow in order to reduce the conflicts varies and all that. So before I'm going ahead with the session, I'm just giving you some indexing. I hope anyway that indexing the content what am I going to cover and all everything were already been updated you, but still anyway when I'm going to start the session, I'll be explaining about the indexing page, wherein you can see here the first is about conflicts we discuss with, followed by that we discuss about why conflicts where and all that, followed by this what exactly conflict management is all about and why is it important for the present condition, because present conditions were in difficult state, right? Because people have different perceptions, people have different opinions, ideas, maybe because of poor communication and different reasons and all, right? So we are discussing these points here, right? The important points and all everything we were discussing here, followed by that we were discussing about the kind of resolution techniques we have. What are the resolution techniques do we need to follow with respect to the organization is concerned, because you need to understand conflict management theorem I'm going to handling now, it's personal and as well as professional. Hope you people are aware of it, right? Because conflict management is a useful subject even in your personal and as well as professional careers. The dealing of conflicts effectively with respect to the workplace is concerned are the points I'm mentioning here, because I'm not mentioning anything which is something relating to the personal space of it, right? Whatever the points we need to discuss under these conflict resolutions and all everything throughout based on the workspace and all that I'm covering you here, right? So I hope you people were understood the basics and all that. Okay, so once the session is completed, the session will be taken some time. Once the session is completed, there are some elements where you people can ask your queries. That question and answer session will be there once the session is done with. So you can come up with your questions, whatever the queries do you have and all that. So I'm happy to answer those, right? So let's start with conflict, right? So normally what exactly a conflict is all about, right? Most of the people were known about what is conflict is all about, because see, as I mentioned you in the beginning, right? So we have gone through some educational qualification earlier. At the same time, after that, few of the people were working for organizations and all. As in when we are working with few of the people, either in the organizations or in a simple way, I can say that when we are in educational qualification, we wants to provide some kind of seminars, group discussions, and all that. There must be a proper communication, as well as the interest, attitudes, and all, everything must be suitable, right? If it is not suitable and all, everything, dealing with all these and all, everything is a difficult task. So conflict is all about the kind of differences between two individuals, or else among groups, right? Among groups or among different departments and all that. Basically focusing more on the thought process, the first point. Second, about attitudes. The third one is about understanding. Understanding doesn't mean misunderstanding, I mean to say here. Followed by the interest and as well as perception. So these are the different aspects which majorly conflict is all about, right? Because for example, when we are working, let's start with, right? For example, when you want to provide some solution in group discussions, when you are attending a group discussion wherein there are some group of people, right? Because there was some simulation or problem has been given by your orator. So to end different groups, wherein these different groups and all will be given some time to them to discuss with, right? What exactly they were and all that. So they have to discuss with. So once they have gone through and once they have discussed and all that, they need to come up with some kind of solutions and all, right? So for that, ensure that there will be a stipulated time will be given for them, not for the whole time. I assume that, for example, 15 minutes of time will be given. In this 15 minutes of time, they wants to come up with some kind of simulations and all. Either if it's in a group discussion and all, there is a problem will be given, problem statement will be given, wherein on that we need to discuss with. So if you want to make it successful in terms of explanation, in terms of better understanding is concerned, one must be having some good rapport in terms of the thought process is all about. The first one is also all about thought process. That's what I'm explaining you now, because thought process is more important for us for any of the uh, decision are we taking and all that, right? Thought process and mindset, I can tell you it's all about thought process, and as well as mindset of an individual plays a vital and important role when you are working for groups. When you are in educational qualification, if you are a student, when you are attending a group discussions and all that, or else when you are working for an organization wherein you need to provide some solution for your customer needs, there must be a proper coordination, and as well as thought process and mindset is more important. So where most of the conflict arises, because of the thought process what an individual have, because everybody have their own understanding, or everybody have their own idea of expressing the things. Somebody may express it in a positive way, somebody may not be expressed as effectively as other people are. So there are some possibilities, right? So there are some possibilities that thought process is the one which majorly affects on conflicts, right? So this is the first point which we want to understand with respect to the thought process is concerned. Not only that, not only a thought process, we can call it as thought, right? Because thought is also important, because the best example I'll give you, by just keeping our session along for some time, I'll give you a real-time example. I hope you guys were aware of movies and all, right? I think you people have seen the movies, watching movies in regular intervals. I hope you people know about a movie called Robo. which was directed by Shankar and acted by South superstar Rajnikant. I hope you people were aware of it. I think most of the people might have seen the movie called Robo. Part 1 I am talking about. Part 1. Could you tell me what exactly Robo Movie is all about? What was the final point which a director wants to tell out of that? Anyone? Ajit, Devanya, Kavya, Naresh, Rajender, Rami, Rishu. What was the final message from that movie? Anyone can get for it. What exactly the output is, right? What was the message? Anyone have any idea? I think you people have gone through movie for multiple times. Even it was there on video movies and all, in TVs and all that, right? What was the final message you can see in the movie called Robo? What was that? What exactly Robo movies or Robo is all about? Anyone? Naresh, Kavya, Firoz, Devanya, Rajender, Rami, Rishu, anyone? What Robo movie consists of? What exactly Robo movie is all about?
Uh, Hello everyone, this is Vinay. So
Vinay,
basically,
very good. Yeah, go
hey,
ahead.
so he created the robo for the service to the army, but
Okay.
unfortunately, due to the ego, came in between and everything messed up.
Right. So what you said, you have expressed a word called ego, right? So that was the
Ego,
point.
yeah,
So about to that, you need to understand it's not only an ego. We have to understand because in the movie you can see that closely the kind of thought process what that robo has, the difference. If the robo has been inserted with a blue chip, it is a constructive phase. If it was inserted as a red chip, it's a destructive phase. Means how and why the thought process is so important for an individual. To explain that, the Robo movie is all about that. You can see because why? Because I'll tell you the best example when the movie was totally completed, the last part of the movie before ending titles and all that, the Robo was dismantled and all, and it will be kept on some place like museum and all that, right? Few of the school students came there and they used to see all that, and one girl asked Robo that why are you like this, right? Why are you being dismantled like this, right? What was the reason behind that? So only one word the Robo says that, and I started thinking that's the reason I'm here, I'm like this. Thought process. I hope you guys understood the importance of thought process here, because in terms of thought process is concerned, if it was thought process something relating to the blue chip, it's a constructive phase. Robo has done miracles in that movie. At the same time, if the red chip has been inserted in the Robo, it's a destructive phase wherein lot of destructions, robberies, all that the Robo used to do that. So this is what generally the message, the final message which a director wants to deliver finally, means how thought process is important for any humankind or mankind. See, if it is mankind, it's not possible to put red chip or blue chips, right? That's the reason Robo has been created, and that Robo has two different chips can be inserted in, right? So thought process is the one which plays a vital and important role, especially in conflicts, because the kind of thought process what we have, the kind of ideas what we have and all everything are more important with respect to the conflicts is concerned. This is point number one. I hope you people are following. Point number two, attitude. Attitude of the people plays a vital and important role. Attitude may not be an arrogance in terms of it. Attitude doesn't mean not only necessarily need not be an arrogance all the time. Attitude come something might be inherited by few people, which has a dominative personality, right? Which comes from since inception and all that. They might have developed some kind of dominative nature. So those kind of attitudes, maybe for small groups that may be encourageable, but whereas for the large groups, this attitude problems and all come starts with, so which also leads to conflicts. This is point number 2. Third, understanding not only an understanding, here I'm talking about misunderstanding the things, like poor communication. This happens because of the communication gap what we have among public, right? Poor communication, because if you see in your careers, in your life, you might have seen there were, including me, right? So there were some situations where we had conflict others because of improper delivery of what are we expecting. For example, I want to say something, right, which is good for the people, but when I'm going to deliver, might be because of my communication, I might be delivered in a wrong manner. So what happened? Obviously there is a possibility that misunderstandings will be happens because of this reason, this. So this is all comes under misunderstanding, right? So understanding, which normally connects with poor communication and all, right? So this is also a part of conflicts here. At the same time, interest also plays a vital and important role under conflicts. What's meant by interest here? For example, when we are providing solutions for the customer needs, when I'm in group, the very first thing what I have to do is I have to respect the views and ideas of others. If not, if I'm trying to dominate, or if I'm trying to impose my interest on the decision what I thought it was right? So if I want to impose this interest on the people whoever there, will not have any value at all, right? So this is another important element which we need to understand, the kind of interest, because I may be having an interest, but this interest must be acceptable by the other people as well, right? If it is not acceptable, obviously conflicts arises here. Followed by interest and all that. The other point was about perception, right? Perceptions and all that. That's what, right? Because my perception of understanding the problem might be entirely different than you, right? So these kind of perceptual differences and all that, right? These are the major aspects which are possibly happens for conflicts, right? Because conflicts, the major reason for conflicts is are these, right? So the thought process what we have, the kind of attitude we have developed over a period of time, the kind of understanding what we have, right? Whatever the level of understanding do we have and all that. At the same time, the kind of interest do we have, whatever the kind of interest do we have and all that, followed by the kind of perceptions and all. So this is what generally the conflict is all about, right? So this conflict can be arise between two individuals or among groups, right? So anything happen. Next, why and where? That's what been explained all this time. Because why? Because there are some differences in terms of understandings, right? Communication and all that. At the same time, these are possible ones happens most of the times at the workplace majorly, because most of the people, because when as in when I'm a consultant for different organizations in organizational behavior and all that, because in my professional career, out of my experience, I was explaining all this. There are some situations where I've seen there was very less work satisfaction for few people. Their position was good. They are getting a good amount of benefits, financials, and all everything from the company. But still, these people used to face some kind of dissatisfaction in terms of working condition is concerned. This also happens in most of the things. I think you might have No, right? So because work satisfaction is important once you have crossed the comfort level, because see, once you started anyone's career, once anyone started their career and all that, withstanding on the career for a long time, getting good amount of financials and all were important, but that is absolutely needed to some extent, may not be full extent, because once you have crossed the years of experience as well as the age, end of the day, respect at the same time work satisfaction are two important things. I hope anyone who have crossed 40 years of age here, people will come to know about that. Of course, I'm not sure. I think all the students were belongs to lesser than the group. If you see cross more than 40 years of age group, like somewhere around 15 plus years of experience in work and all. So these people majorly focusing on two things. The very first thing is work satisfaction. The second was respect, more than the financials, what they were getting and all that. Because once you have crossed, see, normally what happened, perception of an individual or the thinking process of an individual across the world changes for every 10 years. You observe that, because whatever the thought process you have for till 10 years is different than when you are crossing 20. When you are crossing 30, your thought process would be something different. So everybody can analyze themselves closely this. So it is no comparison between two parties or two individuals and all that. Every 10 years, the mindset as well as the kind of thinking ability and thinking process of an individual changes. Right? It comes with age, it comes with experience, it comes with the kind of situations we have faced, right? All these things happens here and all, right? So this is where the situation where most of the people faces the kind of problem when they're working on groups, because the larger challenge for any of the people whoever has crossed 40, the largest challenge, the biggest challenge which these people faces is only of mindset changes, mindset differences, because there are some group of people who is working in the early ages of 20 and all. These people used to work in the organization at the same time in our groups. It's a mix and match. The attitude, that's what I said, right? So every 10 years of whenever we have crossed every 10 years of human life, normally the attitude as well as the thinking process and all, everything will be changed. Depends on it impacts, especially it depends on the kind of work culture we have and all that. Work culture and all that, it's important. So when people were working on groups, there are some possibilities and challenges they faces, especially the kind of thought process differences, because the thought process or a thinking process, that the kind of speed what the person has in the age of early 20s is completely different than the person who has in the age of early 40s or mid 40s or late 40s, whatever it is, right? Because there are some differences. So these are the areas where most of the conflicts arises, because this point most of the people ignores, because most of the people say that it's because of misunderstanding, it's because of perception, poor communication and all. Absolutely right. But among all that, apart from all that, one of the major role and at the same time major part of conflicts arise because of the age difference between two people or among people. That is also there. Of course, I have not mentioned this here, but still I would like to mention this point here to you, because thought process, attitudes, interests, understandings, perceptions, poor communication, these are all common. But apart from all that, age differences among between two parties or among group leads to conflicts all the time. So that majorly there are chances that these things happens, especially at the organizational context. Understood? Are you clear or not? Clear, everyone? Following? Are you following?
Yes, yes.
Okay, carry on. Right, thank you. So this is what generally the why and where are is all about, right? Why means why the problem is happening here. At the same time, where is this happening? This is being happened because of the attitude. At the same time, the age differences among people who is working under groups and organizations also matters here, right? So this is what basic conflicts are all about. Now, how conflict is different with conflict management? Can anyone say that? What's the difference between conflict and conflict management? Anyone? How you are going to differentiate between conflict and conflict management? Anyone, please? Conflict is the kind of differences because of the attitude or because of the misunderstanding or poor communication. Conflict is. But whereas conflict management is the one which majorly focusing on the kind of practices and as well as the processes we are following to reduce the intensity among people whoever is being affected because of the conflicts. This is what we call it as conflict management is. That is what I told you in the beginning of the session. Conflict management as well as resolution strategies and tactics differs from organization to organization. At the same time, depends on the work culture which that organization has and all that. At the same time, the size of employees, the kind of work which that company has, means which kind of industry is this belongs to, because is this being belongs to manufacturing industry, because see, we have only two sectors across the world. One is manufacturing, second is service. Manufacturing, where we manufacture a product, whatever the product it could be, and second is service, means once they have given this product to the customer and whatever the problem a customer is facing and all that, that has to be addressed by the service group, right? So across the world, if you see, we have only two. One is manufacturing, second is service. You manufacture something, at the same time you are providing services to the customer. For example, you bought a mobile, an iPhone, wherein you have a problem, which being a customer, which is being a premium customer of you, have paid a good amount of money to buy the mobile, you're expecting the same services from the service department as well, right? It depends upon the kind of product what we have and all that. So that's the reason why if you observe closely, most of the products, I cannot name those products and all that, but name of most of the products which has very good features, not only mobiles and all that, I'm saying in general, right? And the example what I'm giving you in general, most of the products which has very good quality features and all that failed because of the service level defects, because there was no proper service being given to the customers and all that. Because of that, most of the projects were failed. This is because of the improper addressing of conflict management, because there was no conflict management resolution strategies which companies has to adopt. This is not a one-day job. We have to understand this. Conflict management is not a one-day job, and it's not a one-time job. Conflict management is a process we have to carry on for days, months, weeks, and years together, right? It's a continuous process as long as people are working under in an organization. Conflict management resolution techniques and strategies will also be continued as it is, but the kind of resolution strategy what are we implementing now may not be suitable for tomorrow, right? Because of the kind of changes, environmental changes and all that, right? Because of the kind of business level changes being happened and all that, the kind of technique what we have implemented and succeeded earlier may not be useful for tomorrow. So especially with respect to conflict management techniques is concerned, there must be needed some dynamic changes which must be addressed by the companies for sure. If they failed in addressing these properly, this will leads to a disaster. So most of the companies, most of the products were failed because of improper understanding of the right solutions. At the same time, it's not only right solution at the right time is more important. Understood? Clear or not? Right? This is what normally conflict management is. So the conflict management is the one which normally we call it as a process or a practice, right? Which has to be removed these negative aspects and all from us, and which these positive aspects and all everything has to be efficiently absorbed in any of the organization by removing the negative aspects and all that, right? So this is all happens basically with an optimistic thinking nature what we have, because normally thinking nature will be of two types. One is pessimistic and second is optimistic. So pessimistic people are the people who normally faces problem in each and every stage of their career. With respect to the professional career, this example I'm giving you, okay? So I'm not addressing anything apart. Hope you guys understood this. So pessimistic nature people are the ones which normally face lot of problems in their professional career, because the kind of thought process what they have developed since long time would be like this. Whereas optimistic people are the one which normally try to identify a solution for the problem which they are facing. Because see, let us understand the present situation, as in when we are facing across the world because of the virus. It's been locked down, like lot of people, most of the businesses shut down, right? At the same time, the livelihoods were and all everything were stopped for small business people and all that. Whoever can able to work from home, those people who are working, other people were struggling a lot across the world. But we need to understand the reality here is, this is what optimistic thinking nature I'm saying, but it depends on the kind of situation they were in, right? It matters a lot. It's a serious concern. I understood that. But still, optimistic nature we have to develop. Why? Because wherein when we know about the situation nowadays, what are we facing? And we know very well that there was no vaccination as such earlier. And whatever the vaccination is being introduced across world by the honorable scientists or the medical people may come maybe after 6 months or 8 months or 1 year, which is not predictable, right? Which people used to say that, but it comes to practice and it comes to the normal public, takes a lot of time, right? It's not a one-day job, because normally to deliver a vaccine and all normally it takes 18 months to 24 months. This is the usual time any vaccine across the world starts with. Even with high level emergency, even though we start, there are some medical procedures which the companies has to follow, because they cannot remove all that. Because see, government can give permissions very fast. Because of the situations, the governments were giving free hand to the companies to develop it. But when it comes to trials and all that, the trials and all everything has a set of procedure which everybody has to follow. Every company has to follow that, right? So because that cannot be skipped out, so it takes time. So in this meanwhile, what we have to do? Okay, taking self precautions and domestic distance between two people and all that has to be maintained, with more hygienic things and all that. Apart from that, what else is required? Understanding the situation and thinking of alternatives. This is what we call as optimistic nature. This is where conflict arises most of the times, because problem we see problem in each and every situation what we are facing. At the same time, we feel that this is the problem we are only facing, not anyone else apart. This is what most of the people face, most of the people thinks. Because I'm not generalizing this, this is an example I'm just giving. If somebody people were outside as well, right? So but there are situations where, if you're thinking from an optimistic nature, by understanding the present situation in mind, what is to do? Okay, you understood the situation. You understood very clear that for the next downline for the next 1 year, we have to be more cautious. So what else we have to do? You have to understand the situation. Optimistic thinking is required. So what else are the alternatives for me to move forward in my life? This is what the optimistic thinking. So this you're getting at the difficult times. See, our brain will be sharpened when we are in the difficult state of the life. Whenever we are in the critical state, then only innovations will start. If you are in a comfort level state, no innovations, nothing. If you are in difficult state, if we are in difficult state, obviously our brain power will be more, right? Our brain will be sharpened, right? So that has to be put it in a practice in an optimistic nature. So if not happens, conflicts arises most of the time. That's a reason why under conflict management, the amount of point which we have to adopt, especially with respect to our organizations, employees is concerned, is to develop optimistic thinking. Optimistic nature and thinking is more important, especially under conflict management, especially with respect to nowadays present situations and all everything is concerned. Because situations are becoming pandemic, nobody knows what to do and all that. Situations is going worse and day by day. We have to take care of ourselves at the same time our motivation at the same time stress levels should not be increased more. So we have to look for an alternative. What else are the alternatives to survive for ourselves in terms of professional works is concerned? That is what generally the thinking process anyone or the organization has to develop. Are you following, everyone? Following or not? Right? So this is what generally the conflict management is all about. Understood? Clear, everyone? Now, what are the strategies and as well as resolution techniques? Because everybody can come up with their own resolution techniques with respect to the conflict management is concerned, but there are two people, one is Thomas and as well as Killman. These are the two gentlemen who has invented 5 resolution techniques which are more useful for conflict management. So these are the generalized points being mentioned by these people irrespective of the organization, irrespective of the situation we are in. Because sometimes when it talks about risk, let us understand about risk first, right? When we talk about before we are talking about conflict management, let me give you an example with respect to the risk is concerned, right? When we, I think, hope you people have idea about or not, when we talk about risk management, whatever the kind of risk management procedures and all that, there are some stages which normally we follow. One is risk identification, the second was risk assessment, third is risk transfer, fourth is risk ignorance. This is what we say. First is you have to assess identify the risk. Second, once you have identified the risk, the second one what you have to do is you need to assess it, how impacts you it is to you, right? How largely it impacts you. That assessment, the severity you have to understand. Third, you have to transfer the risk as much as you can so that the stress can be reduced. Or else sometimes we have to ignore the risk as well. So these are the risk resolution strategies or risk strategies which normally we follow when we are working on any of the projects. It's not only a software projects and all. When we people are working for construction projects or whatever it is, people normally follows all that. In the same way, there are some resolution techniques which Thomas and Kilman has introduced in for our benefit are divided into 5 parts. The first one is avoiding of, second was competing, third was accommodating, fourth one is collaborating, and fifth one is compromising. So these are the 4 levels where 5 levels where Thomas and Kilman has given us the resolution techniques. So first is avoidance. What is meant by avoidance? Conflict has to be avoided. What does mean by avoidance? Conflict means avoiding conflict means speaking less, right? Not to involve on the controversial discussions. If you keep quiet, not all the time, when it is required, mouth can be opened. But sometimes, if you're avoiding conflict by not speaking anything else, most of the conflict will be wiped off. This is what we call it as avoiding. If you start avoiding the conflict situation in the primary stages itself, there will be no problem at all for us which need to be escalated to conflict management and all that, which is not required. So once this first point we need to understand is avoiding. The second was competing. What is meant by competing? See, resolutions, at the same time conclusions on a particular aspects, conclusion on some aspects happens because of the kind of competing attitude which normally people have to understand with, right? So because the competing aspects, the competing nature, when we are working on groups, that competing nature must be developed, because there is no one here as who is big and who is small, right? Everybody are equal when we are working on groups and all that. That kind of competing nature, when we are trying to inculcate in ourselves, most so that we feel that everybody were equal here, so that there are chances that we can reduce the conflicts as much as you can. The next one is about accommodating. What is meant by accommodating? What is meant by an accommodating here? What is meant by accommodating? Accommodating is not the one which are we differing with other people. Accommodating doesn't mean the kind of differences if we are expecting from someone or in the groups when we are working for companies and all that. We try to prepare ourselves, and we try to accommodate the kind of situations which can be predictable, right? Which are we predicting in near futures and all that. If try to accommodate the kind of problems which we might be arised in near future, if you try to accommodate these things as much as you can, which reduces the conflicts as much as possible for you, right? This is all comes under accommodating part. The next one is collaborating. What is meant by collaborating? Unless until if you are working on groups, all the resolutions, all the conflicts and all everything will be wiped off here, because you have to collaborate the kind of ideas, the kind of decisions what we have and all that. If you're collaborating your ideas and all among groups, which reduces most of the times. The final one but not least one is all about compromising. So this is the best thing, wherein when you're working for the large groups, when you're working for organizations and all that, if you're focusing more on compromising nature, would be more helpful to us, because compromising nature plays a vital and important role for any company or project success. Not all the times, but sometimes, because you're not supposed to drag this for a long time, right? So detailed lagging on issues and all everything may demotivate people who is working there, right? So people who is working and all may get demotivated, right? They may be frightened. There are possibilities that more attrition rate for the company will happen because of improper working environment and all that, right? So this cannot be dragged for a long time. Hence compromising is the best technique, which normally anyone to follow when we are talking about resolution techniques. Because if you are compromising, see, this is where major problem comes here is ego. If you start satisfying ego of an individual or a group of people, problem solved. But here compromising plays a vital and important role, right? You're moving a step further, and you're trying to compromise on some issue by reducing your ego, and you're going to other person and you're speaking to them, which most of the problems will come down, right? Because of these conflicts, at the same time the kind of problems what majorly we faces, especially conflicts and all, the major one more reason is Mr. Vinay has quoted a few minutes back as well, is ego. The kind of ego what an individual has or groups has, whatever it is, right? If you start reducing that, and if you start controlling your ego from your end. You start compromising on few things which are beneficial for the company. I'm saying, right? Please underline this, which is just beneficial to the company and welfare of the company. I'm talking about, not welfare of the individuals, which is not entertained at all, right? Which is welfare of the company. If you are compromising on some situations, especially when we are in senior roles, this kinds of compromising nature sometimes is possible, because see, the kind of thinking process or the kind of thinking ability what I have, I cannot compare. Even though I'm a senior professional, I cannot compare this with a junior people, because their mindset and the kind of, I may be experienced, but the kind of situations, how the situations were revolving across the world, I may not be updated as like as a person who is in the early 20s and all that, right? So sometimes I have to respect the kind of ideas. At the same time, I have to respect the kind of suggestions what those kind of people have given to me, right? But what I have to do is that, if I'm the person, if I'm saying, let me take myself as an example, if what I do, I'll take their suggestions and all everything in picture. By keeping my experience in mind, I try to integrate my experience with their suggestions, and I'll try to provide the solutions. This is what we call it as compromising. Yes, understand? So these are the techniques which normally Thomas and Kilman, who has proposed under conflict resolution techniques, right? So these are the conflict resolution techniques we're all about. Now we need to talk about the kind of steps are we taking to reduce the conflicts at the workplace. The first point, clarity is more important. Clarity is more important. What we are doing, what not we doing, right? What are we not doing and all that. So that differences and all everything, we need to understand what is to be agreed, what is to be disagreed. So that clarity is more important. At the same time, you have to clarify that. So unless until if you are not transparent and clarity, you don't have the clarity and transparency at the workplace, which increases the conflicts among people. Hence, if you want to reduce the conflicts at workplace and all that, first of all, transparency is more important. Clarity is required. At the same time, we need to clarify what is disagreement is all about. Followed by that, see here, that's what I told you in the last point. I told you when we are talking about interest and all that. Personal interest and personal agenda and goals are not allowed when you are working under at the workplace. Hence, establishing a common goal is more important, right? We have to establish a common goal which is more required for anyone to achieve, right? Because goal must be one. Whoever working under whatever the kind of different designations and experiences these people have, all these people must leads to establishing a common goal, and they have to reach to that extent. This is what we call this establishing of common goal is all about. The third point is discussing ways to meet the common goal. So here there are two things. One is planning and second is execution. You are planned here, right? You are planned and you are kept some common goals here and all that. But unless until if you are not establishing it properly, right? At the same time, if you are not implementing this properly, will not have any value at all. So we need to understand and we need to discuss the kind of ways which to meet the common goal. How to meet the common goal? The execution is important, because you have built up the strategy, but unless until if you are not executing in a proper way, whatever the strategies or whatever the goals you have identified will not have any value at all. So establishing a goal is more important. At the same time, we need to drive towards that. For that, we need to have a discussion and how to reach those goals and all everything we need to do. Mid of that, we need to identify the barriers as well, because barriers could be the kind of communication gaps what people have. At the same time, the kind of ideological, the kind of differences in terms of ideas is concerned and all that. So those are, we call it as barriers of common goal, because whenever you're reaching towards that common goal, or is the kind of policies and procedures what we company have, or the kind of expectation what a client or market is expecting, whatever it is, right? Either it could be manufacturing or service sector, right? The kind of barriers what we have, or as the barriers among all that barriers are ego barriers at the same time, right? Ego barriers are also, because barriers, especially ego, because if see, we should have, especially when we talk about let me give you an example. uh, Especially I think I'm not sure whether how many people were working under software sector and all that. There was a methodology to develop a project called as agile in real time. Agile methodology, we call it as. Agile methodology is a kind of practice normally nowadays all the companies were following, especially for short-term goals, right? To reach the short-term goals, to have a short-term delivery of the project. No, normally people uses this, right? This is what it is. But apart from all that, Agile tells you all about team effort, teamwork. No individual decisions or no individual uh, capacities or no individual performances will be taken into an account. Whatever the work and whatever the success or a failure will be given to everyone, right? So that kind of mindset normally agile teams must be developed, so then only the projects will be succeeded and all that. So these kind of mindsets normally everybody has to follow, because this is all comes with thought process. Because normally as a human being, as we have an ego, normally whatever the work I did, because of that whatever the success uh, I got. Normally, I don't want to share this with other people, right? So normally, this is how generally human is all about, right? But when we are working under groups, when we are working on projects, agile is the one methodology which majorly focusing on forget about whatever the kind of problems you have and all that. So if you start understanding this, even though if someone is absent, on behalf of them we have to work. And finally the output as well as success of providing solution at the same time delivering it to the customer is more important. This is what we call it as team spirit, team management and teamwork. So those have to be adopted. So those we have to predict prior. So these are the barriers, right? Because when you are moving towards goal, to reaching to the goal and all that, there are possibilities that some people works extensively because of the work profile what they have. Some people may works very less, right? So there are some differences here and all, right? So there will be some difference between these two. So we need to understand and determine the kind of barriers, at the same time the kind of common goals which we are supposed to achieve. So for that there should not be any kind of differences among public, who is working low and who is working high. It depends upon the kind of profile they were in, the kind of work pressure what they have and all that, they were discharging their duties. So these kind of differences and all everything has to be avoided, apart from the rest of the other barriers, which is also another important aspect when we want to reach towards the goal which we are about to reach here. At the same time, we need to agree on the best way to resolve the conflict, right? So agreeing is important, because we have to develop a mindset. Yes, I follow. See, for example, there was a conflict wherein we want to minimize this conflict between two parties. If these two parties have a mindset that yes, I am ready to come for a common resolution, it is easy for us to solve the problem. If not, if somebody is thinking that at any cost I am not going to agree, what you will do? We can't do anything, right? Because that agreement in terms of providing or in terms of compromising nature must be there for every individual who is coming for conflict resolutions and all that, right? That kind of agreeing kind of nature is more required, not to be too rigid that no, I'm not going to accept this, that and all everything, which is not fairly not possible all the time. So there is some, that's what when we are talking about the resolution techniques, I have told you a point called as compromise, right? So the final point I mentioned you about the compromise and all that, that compromising nature, the kind of attitude has to be developed in order to not to extend these kind of problems for a long time and for a larger context. In order to extend it all this time, if you're trying to understand the kind of resolution techniques what we're following, at the same time, if you're having a state of mind of agreeing something, will be more helpful. At the same time, acknowledge the agreed upon solution and determine the responsibilities. Acknowledgement is also important, because if you are providing solutions to the customer needs, or if you are coming up with some kind of responsibilities what we want to determine here and all that, acknowledgement is also important, because unless until if you are not acknowledged, whatever the solution we have given in order to determine the responsibilities will be a failure, right? So these are the steps we have to take to reduce the conflicts normally which happens in the workplace, right? So these are the points we have to keep in mind when we want to reduce the conflicts as much as whatever the conflicts we have and all that. If you want to reduce this conflict as much as we can at the workplace, these points, if you are keeping ourselves in mind, it will be more helpful to anyone in near future, right? So these are the points which I would like to explain uh, in my session today, so which I hope I've successfully completed whatever I want to deliver here and all that. So the session was partly completed to some extent, wherein this is the time wherein I would like to ask you some kind of queries, like do you have any kind of questions you have with respect to the conflict management is concerned, right? Based upon the kind of problems what you guys were facing, right? When you are in professional work, if you want to have any kind of questions with relating to that and all that, and you are allowed to ask. Please go ahead, right? Anyone have any queries, any questions from your end,
Hey
please?
Raj,
And before
like
you're asking the question, my suggestion was, please tell me about yourself for 2 minutes, then start asking your query. Go ahead.
so thanks Raj. So this is Anurag, and I have more than 8 years experience as a Oracle DBA, and I'm from Gurgaon, right?
Oh, okay.
So what else do we need to cover here, or that's it in the introduction?
Sorry. Yeah, that's it. That's it. See,
Uh,
I want your
oh,
professional experience in brief. That's it. Thank you, Anurag.
yeah. So I'm just asking your views on the some, you can say, on the in some respect of conflict, you can say. So for example, like in a company, like if manager is doing some partiality kind of work, right?
Mm,
Because there is some employees who are the from their reference in the team, right? And they are doing the partiality in the doing work and distributing work, you can say, and they are doing more priority to their reference people instead of other people in the team. So how we can tackle out this kind of situation, because we know that manager is not us with us, right? So how we can tackle out this kind of
right.
situation? So,
I understood, Anurag. I think you're mentioning the point majorly on partiality, right? So partiality, a
yeah,
person who,
partiality
for
is yes,
example, if I am
yes,
the manager whom have taken, for example, if I have moved into to other company, wherein I have taken 4 of my employees to that company, wherein I'm favoring to them, and I'm ignoring people who is working best, right? So this is what you're asking me, right? This is the question you're
right,
asking.
same, yeah, same, yes,
See, see, the point we need to understand from a larger context, that mindset of an individual or mindset of the people may not be right because of the kind of experience what they have and all that, because there are cases that people have very good rich experience in terms of their professional career is concerned, may not be good in terms of attitude problems and all that, right? So these kind of problems happens in all the organizations, in most of the organizations and all that. So that's the reason here what we need to understand from a broader context is, try to understand the situation, because I understood the kind of problem what you were asking me, understood, because practically it is really hard for anyone to address. Because see, for example, if I'm working hard for a long time in an organization in a committed manner, but still my recognition, my hard work, at the same time my commitment is not being recognized for indifferent reasons and all that, normally I feel demotivated, right? This kind of problem happens for anyone and all that. So but only one thing what we need to understand, wherever the possibility, because it's not in terms of conflict, or it's not the controversial statement I'm providing you, wherever the possible times and whenever there is a possibility of highlighting the kind of partialities being established by someone, right, that has to be highlighted as much as many times as possible, by reducing the conflict among people who is working for groups. Because you need to highlight, at the same time make sure a person who is working and who wants to highlight these kind of problems must be professionally good. If these people are not professionally good, if you're not trying to highlight the kind of partiality when it comes in a proper channel, at the same time a proper platform, if you are not highlighting, right, so which normally demotivates most of the people here, right? So this is what majorly the focus we need to highlight. Highlighting thing is one thing, at the same time, or else you have to ignore it and you need to go ahead as like as yours. Right? Those are the only two things. One is either we have to highlight the problem in a in a important platform where this can have more reach to the remaining especially high rarities and all. This is the one thing which can be done. At the same time, or else you have to ignore it and you have to go according to the way it is. So those are the only two ways, because this kind of problem and these kind of situations and all, everything happens in each and every stage of their professional careers. May happens in the initial stages, it happens in the mid-level management, at the same time it happens sometimes in the higher level management as well, because of indifferent reasons. Either two, either establish it as much. If it is in the right platform, you have to establish the faults in front of the senior authorities is the first solution, or else compromising and moving forward, right? These are the only two things which you can do it, but depends on the kind of importance, depends upon the kind of power what that individual has, that we have to keep in mind. Because most of the people will get frightened because of that, the kind of performance appraisals and all, everything in their hands. So that if I want trying to establish this, that may affect more my performance appraisal reports and all that, right? So
Right.
uh, this kind of fears and all, everything will be there on people. I understood that, but these are the only two things. Either we have to be compromised, or else we have to establish this and the right platform to the right public. These are the only two things which can be done, especially for the people who are is showing partiality intentionally at workplace. That's it. That's only the thing.
Yeah,
Anything
thank
apart?
you, Raj. I think no, no, no. Thanks for your input here. But
Good.
it's happened is very pathetic sometimes because it feels some. Yeah, I totally agree with you. It's going for demotivating the things from the our
Absolutely.
side.
See this kind of problem happens. See, that's what I told you. See, the example I've just given you, the kind of problem are we facing nowadays. Who any solution across the world? As of now, no solution, right? We have to get that vaccination. When do we get? We don't know. What are we doing now? Simple. We are understanding the situations. Based on the situation, what are the basic precautions to be taken? We are taking it. We know the problem is so intense, but still we know that at the same time we know that there was no solution as such as of now. So what we are doing, we are understanding the situation. Just try to compare the kind of situation, this COVID virus situation, with the example what you have given me, right? So this cannot be neutralized, right? You cannot remove this virus and all kind of, because there is no vaccination as such. So what we have to do, rather we have to do two one things. One is try to follow as many precautions as possible. The second was try to understand and look for alternative solutions for our work, which should not be damaged our work style. Those are the only two things which are we have now. The same thing implied also there as well. Simple, very simple. Next, anyone apart? Ajit, Anurag, Firoz, Kavya, Manpreet, Rami. Who else? Anyone apart? These many? Okay, fine.
Hello.
Anyone have any queries? Yes, Ajit. Go ahead, Ajit.
Yeah, yeah. If the manager is not willing to get the suggestion, and I am the higher post, I am the technology head of our company, but some of the CTO or CEO is not understanding my means my my level of thinkings are there. When I am explaining, they will reject in the initial level. So in that scenario, what I have to do?
See,
I have the conflict with the even the CTOs also, and it is the minimum conflict are there that has been means taken care. But I need the solution because we are attending the conflict management system. So anyhow we can handle it or what?
see the major. Thank you, Ajit. Nice question too from your side. See, the major here is that's what the again the problem again the point comes here is ego, because normally when people were in higher levels, if
Yes,
some of their subordinates, whoever, even you are in a higher position, even though may not be as CTO levels and all that, whoever they are, normally human tendency is that, right? I'm generalizing this again, I'm generalizing this, I'm not questioning anyone. Generalizing
yeah,
the
yeah,
point is that whoever is in the higher levels normally will have an ego, that if I start accepting what someone is saying, right, I'll become light. At the
yes,
same time, those people also will have an insecure state of mind, that if, for example, if someone is accepting, CTO is accepting your suggestion, right, or even though it is valid, the good suggestion
yeah,
from you,
yes,
they
yes,
start encouraging that you may take in this as an advantage on them. So these kind of normal insecure problems which higher management will have. So here what from our end what we have to do is only one thing. Depends upon the kind of responsibility what we have, whatever the best and whatever is beneficial to the company, we have delivered and we have expressed our views to the higher management. That is what only we can do. Apart from that, whether they were accepting or rejecting, it's up to their task. Because don't see, sometimes it is better not to take everything to heart. Because
yes,
see,
yes,
the major problem for human, any human, I'm saying any human happens is that sometimes we see small problems we see in a larger context, and a large problems we in a smaller context, micro and macro level, right? This is what we call it as micro level and macro level and all that. Some problems we see from the macro level point of view, wherein you know
yes,
that there is no solution as such, but still if we feel try to resolve that, will give you only stress, not we don't give you anything apart. So it is all advisable, all most of the times, I'm not saying for every time, it is advisable most of the times try to ignore as much as you can when you are advising something which can be ignored by someone, even though it is valid, right? If someone is not ignoring things from that point of view that you are right, it's better to ignore that kind of situations as much as we can. That
yes,
was the
yes.
best thing which can be
Best,
done.
best.
Because normally higher level management has this problem, because I've seen
Yes.
in many cases, of course in my professional life as well, even though
Yeah, similar case.
I know that they,
Yeah,
I know that this is a valid suggestion I'm giving to them, but still they don't try to follow that. Of course by end of
yeah,
the day they implement the same solution in another format, may not be the format what I have given, they might be
yeah,
implemented in another format, but they never accepts me, because their ego doesn't allows me to do that. Because if I've taken that, what happened was there is a possibility that I might have taken advantage on them after some time.
yes.
So that kind of, so those are realities, right? So that's it, simple. Anyone apart? Ajit,
No, no, it's
Anurag? Firoz?
I also understand the similar thing is happen to me also, and I also handle by the talking, and I had cleared the clarification what I am doing that. So that's why I am safe in company. So it happened. I
Yeah,
see two times happen to me.
yeah,
Twice.
yeah, yeah.
This is the twice time.
Yeah, so because that's what the problem, major problem here is, how are we receiving, Ajit? See, major,
Yes.
especially at workplace, whatever the kind of problems do we have and all that, the major challenge here is how are we receiving? Because each and every personal individual behavior is not one way. Because somebody
Yeah.
are very emotional. See, we have to understand one thing. See, sometimes we have to think from brain, sometimes we have to think from heart. But normally
Yes.
what happen is we do vice versa. Whatever the decisions or whatever we have to think, you have to think from a logical perspective than from heart. If you are taking this to heart, then problem comes. This kind of problems you have to think from brain, not from heart. If you start thinking from heart, which leads to emotional problem. So
Yes.
never ever try to think these kind of problems. I'm saying, I'm underlying this, right? So these kind of problems to heart, because see, if it is personal, then you can take it to heart. It's in professional work. Better
Yeah.
you think from a logical perspective, think from mind. Why is he not accepting? So this is the reason. Okay, keep quiet, just chodo, simple. If you're thinking
Yes.
from heart, again this frustration and stress and all, everything increases a lot. So
Yes.
mindset is very important. And moreover, I would like to inform everyone that whatever is thinking from mind is different, whatever thinking from heart is different. Whenever you are taking decisions and when you are thinking on something, if you're thinking from mind, that's lead to logical thinking, should be taken from mind. What is to be taken from heart, that is different. So don't mix up these two things, because most of the people are ignoring these two and try to, and
Yes.
it's because of ignorance, not by intention. Most of the people try to mix these two things. Whichever they want to think from a logical perspective, they start thinking from heart. So again emotion
Mhm.
starts and we feel stress. So don't do that,
Yes. Yes.
never ever, please. Yeah, go ahead. Clear, Ajit? Your
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
is good. Anurag, Firoz, Kavya, Manpreet,
Yes, Raj,
Navin.
actually, but sometimes we can understand, but it is not acceptable at all sometimes. So it is very difficult to take like from heart
See,
and from
Anurag,
mind perspective.
yeah, Anurag,
Yes, Raj.
giving suggestions is very simple, right? I understand that. But of course, implementation is very difficult. I understood the same. Sometimes some problems we have to think from, right? Think logically. This
Yeah, thanks, Raj.
uh, we don't get any kind of stress and all that. That much I can tell you. Understood, Andra? Clear?
Yes, yes, Raj. Yes.
Yeah,
Thank you for
clear.
valuable suggestion. Yeah, thanks.
Because we need to understand the reality here, Anurag. That's it. That's the only one thing we need to keep in mind. Reality is more important. That's it.
Exactly. Yes.
Right. Anything? Anyone? Firoz, Kavya, Manpreet, Rami, Ajit? Was done with? Everyone clear? No queries from your end? You can post your feedback and all everything to this. Here the links have been given and all that. So wherein you please post your feedbacks here and all that. And officially I'm winding up session for today. If you have any queries and all, you can post your feedback and all there and all that. And at the same time, uh, for any queries and all, you can reach them at any point of time, by the way. Shall I wind up session? Shall I close the session for today then? Right?
Thank you.
Fine. Right, Ajit, right. Anurag, Firoz, Kavya, Manpreet, Rami, everyone. Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Bye. Good night and as well as good morning. Thank you then. See you.